All right. Hello, it's a new day and abundance is here. My name is Bisola Miriam. I'm just trying to check if everything is correct before I go live. Okay, let's do this. Okay. I'm trying to make sure everything is on point. Okay, great. We are live on all platforms to the glory of God, and I am going to go live right now, also on Instagram. Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. It's a new day, and I'm excited to be live and to be sharing with you my thoughts on day 31 to day 33 of the 60 days series on childhood trauma and narcissistic abuse. In the first 30 days, I did share with you all my personal story. I mean, I couldn't share everything, that I've gone through because 30 days indeed is not enough to capture all that I've had to endure in the last 29 years of my life, right? 28 turning 29 in few days and climbing the stage 30 very soon. And I'm just so excited about the things that would happen even before I turn 30. And so I just wanted to come here to share with you specifically on the new thing that I will be doing in the next 30 days. Like I said, in the next 30 days, I will basically talk to you all about childhood trauma and narcissistic abuse. So my focus today is to explain to you the roots, the origin of those words, narcissism and codependency, okay? I'm going to share with you the history behind narcissism and codependency. So there is a story that I was taught as a student of classics. So my first and second degrees, my first degree and my first master's degree was in were in classical studies. And what is classics? Basically, the study of the history, culture, religion, and civilization of the ancient Greeks and Romans, and the impact of these two ancient cultures on modern civilization. So during one of my classics courses, there was this course that was named Classical Mythology. And in this course, we learned about Echo and Narcissus. Echo was a Greek, nymph, more like a demigod, and then Narcissus was a demigod himself. So Narcissus was a very handsome young man that was loved by a lot of people. Echo was a very beautiful young lady who, of course, was charming, but did not see her beauty. Does that make sense? Echo was very beautiful, very charming, but she did not recognize her beauty. Diola Bimbola, good to see you, bro. So Narcissus was a charming young boy who was just so carried away with his own beauty. Actually, for Narcissus, he saw his beauty, he saw his worth. In fact, he saw more than he was worth, meaning that he was overly pompous, very selfish, very selfish, very, very, how do I put this? Just very, vain. Yeah, that was Narcissus. So Narcissus as a demigod, because there was a curse. There was a curse that was placed on Echo. Echo was cursed by Hera. Who was Hera? Hera was the goddess, was the Greek goddess that was also the wife of Zeus. Zeus was a Greek god himself. What we call Jupiter, right, is, we talk about Jupiter in Roman mythology. Jupiter is a planet, right? But the name Jupiter came from the came from the Roman god Jupiter. And the name Jupiter was a Roman version for the Greek god Zeus. So Zeus was the supreme god on Mount Olympus. Mount Olympus was the place for the gods and goddesses in ancient Greece, okay? Even though this is a story, this is very relevant and I want you to pay attention. So while Narcissus was charming and very self-centered and didn't pay attention to Echo and her feelings, there was a curse actually, and the curse was that Echo would always make efforts to try to get the attention of Narcissus, but Narcissus was never going to reciprocate Echo's love. That was the curse, okay? And so it happened that as much as Echo was beautiful and, very adorable, she never was able to get the attention of Narcissus. Meaning that because there was a curse on her, every time she would shout and say, Narcissus, Narcissus, Narcissus never heard her, okay? Narcissus never heard her saying, I love you, I care about you, I want you to care about me, I want you to be present. Sorry, that she never got it because Narcissus was operating under a curse, just like she was also operating under a curse. Now, it's a story, but this is the lesson. It happened that forever, Narcissus was never able to see the worth or the love or the true love that Echo had for him. And when you think about the idea of echoing, right? When a voice is echoing, it is possible that the person who is speaking is not there, but you can hear the echo, right, of the person's voice. Or sometimes the person who is saying something, you might be in a place where your voice is echoing back to you, but you are the only one who is hearing yourself. You are the only one who is feeling your pain. People might not feel that pain. And so for Echo, she was the only one whose pain, whose grief was echoing back to her. Narcissus was not seeing what she was feeling. He didn't see it, okay? And that is where that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the personality types called narcissism and codependency. So when you think about the way in which a narcissist is, think about Narcissus and the idea that he was too full of himself as a character. And when I use he or she, I do not use he or she in an heteronormative way, right? I am not genderizing these characters or these personality types, but these characters were genderized in classical myth. And I'm simply using that illustration for this, conversation. And so the next thing you need to understand is what these two personality types are. There is a personality type called codependency, and there is a personality type called narcissism. A narcissist is a type of person who is selfish, self-centered, and basically focuses on self-preservation. A narcissist does not care about what others feel. They usually care about how they feel, how they look, the way they appear in the world, how their ego can be fed, how people can worship them, how everything can be about them. But for the codependent person is constantly making effort to make people happy, solve people's problems, care for other people. In fact, a lot of times the codependent person is busy screaming for help. Okay, but they don't scream in a way that others will feel their pain. Actually, they scream for help and scream back to themselves. And so that's why a lot of times when people are struggling in relationships, especially narcissistic relationships, if one of the two partners is a codependent, guess what? The codependent person is still going to be loving, caring, will still continue to give because that is their nature. While the narcissistic person will continue to take and would never, ever be able to see the pain of the codependents. Even though the codependent might be screaming and saying and dying and crying for help, just like Echo in the story of Narcissus and Echo, the codependent remains Echo and the narcissistic person remains a narcissus. That's the story. And that is how it connects to these two personality types. I made a post earlier on my platforms. If you check those articles where I was basically sharing excerpts from my self-care journal, which I'm releasing alongside with my book during my book launch. And I want you to use these stories to kind of understand how, these things happen. And this is something that you may be struggling with right now. And moving forward, let's talk a little bit about the making of a codependent caregiver and the narcissistic caregiver. Okay. And so one thing I need you to understand is a codependent or a narcissistic person does not fall from heaven. A codependent person and or a narcissistic person, okay, does not fall from heaven. They are both made. They are made by parenting. So parenting is what makes someone become narcissistic and another person become a codependent. Let me say that one more time. Parenting is what makes someone narcissistic, parenting is what makes someone become narcissistic and codependent at the same time. Okay, parenting is what makes someone become narcissistic and codependent. When a child is being raised, now this is how a narcissist become. While there might be other factors that may contribute to the making or the becoming of a narcissist, primarily, I want you to understand that the first thing that contributes or makes someone narcissistic is parenting. If a child is parented or is being parented by a narcissistic parent, the child will become narcissistic. If a child is being parented by a narcissistic parent, I'll say that again, the child can become narcissistic. If a child is also being parented by a codependent parent, the child can still become narcissistic. Secondly, if a child is being parented by a codependent parent, the child can become codependent, which is the natural thing that should follow. If a child is also being parented by a codependent parent, the child can still be narcissistic. So it's funny, right? A narcissistic parent can beget another narcissistic child. A narcissistic parent can actually beget a codependent child. On the other hand, a narcissistic parent can end up, a codependent parent can end up creating a codependent child. Also, a codependent parent can also end up creating another narcissistic child. So how exactly do all of this even connect? How do they make sense to you? And here are some things that I want you to understand. A parent who is narcissistic must have been raised by a codependent or a narcissistic parent, or may have been raised by a narcissistic mother and a codependent father, right? Or two narcissistic parents. Or in a case, one might be narcissistic, the other might be codependent. And so we can have a situation whereby a child was raised by a parent who was also a victim of this same vicious cycle of narcissism, or the other cycle, which is codependency. And so when a parent is narcissistic, here are some of the things that would happen. The first thing I want you to know is a narcissistic parent is always intolerant. A narcissistic parent does not take excuses. A narcissistic parent will judge a child. A narcissistic parent will compare a child with others. Here, have you seen, listen to this? I mean, think about this kind of conversation. Look at your friends. Your friends are in college. You are still at home. Look at you. I made that food. Why did you break my plates? Why did you do this? That is why you are always wrong, because you don't know anything. Now, the thing is, the parent is also broken or suffering from some unprocessed, is suffering from some unprocessed pain. And so the way in which we respond to pain is a pointer to the way to a large extent can determine or impact our parenting. So if a parent is hurting or has some unprocessed trauma, it is likely that that parent would be aggressive or would be too kind. Two things happen when people suffer pain or trauma. We either become too kind or we become too unkind. And so when the parent is stressed, maybe from work, life, family, or some other challenges, the parent can begin to express his or her pain, okay, by being unnecessarily mean to a child. And so when the parent is mean to a child, the parent says terrible things to the child becomes insecure and begins to feel, sometimes can be withdrawn. And by the time the child gets to a point where there is the possibility that the child is unable to tolerate whatever the parent is doing anymore, guess what happens? The child would turn back and become a very the exact copy or the carbon copy of the parent. So think about it. There's this saying that, so usually there's a culture in Nigeria. Ayodeji, good to see you here. There's this culture in Nigeria where when you push a goat, they say aguton, right? You push a goat, you keep pushing the goats. Suddenly the goats will look and turn back and want to revolt, right? That is what happens in the creation of a narcissist, right? When a parent is unkind, especially because there is some void or some unprocessed pain or trauma, the parent can begin to put unnecessary pressure on a child. And when the parent begins to put unnecessary pressure on the child can respond in a way that will make the child also become narcissistic. Meaning that the child will begin to feel somehow. So for instance, a parent who says things like, you should do this, you should behave like that person. Look at your brother, he's smarter than you. This is how you should wear your shoe. This is why you should do this. Many of your colleagues have gotten jobs here and there. Your mates are married. Oh, you are not doing this. Now let's even go back to when a child is very young, between age 1 to 7, right? Or 1 to 10. That's usually the time when many of these things, a lot of things that happen in our adulthood have been planted in us from that time when we were age 1 to 10. And so think about a situation where a parent comes back from work and the parent is screaming, or the parent is saying things like, why haven't you done your assignment? Or why didn't you do well in this test? You are very dull. You don't know anything. The child may become so pressured that he feels or she thinks that the world is designed this way, in a way which is people only value you based on what you can get or what you can give. The child begins to see the world as a place of competition, as a place where the only thing I'm here for is to achieve. Anything short of that, I cannot be loved. People will never accept me. I can't be myself. And so the narcissistic child goes around, shows up in the world with this facade, the facade that was, created or put there by the parents. So they go around the world with this mindset, with this identity that when I dress this way, people will like me. When I wear this kind of cloth, people will accept me. When I win this award. So everything for them is transactional, meaning what am I going to get from it? Why? because of the way the child was raised to see the world, especially because of the narcissistic parent or a codependent parent. Now, how then does a codependent parent build or recreate a narcissistic child? A codependent parent who is, one, permissive, does not set clear boundaries, gives the child whatever the child wants without telling the child that no, you can't have this, right? So the child would always wait for a yes. No is never going to be an acceptable word or an acceptable phrase in that child's dictionary. And why is that? Because of the mindset that the child grew up with, especially because of the way the child has been made to see the world, parenting. And this parenting might come from the parents or someone else who plays the role of a caregiver in the life of a child. And that is why I say, when I thought about what to, use as the title of this self-care journal, I could not think of a better word or a better idea than broken child, broken adults. So where is your brokenness from? Were you raised by a codependent mother or father, or was one of your parents codependent and the other narcissistic? Many times, codependent people attract narcissistic people. And that is why sometimes you may not have been raised by one parent. You may have been raised by two parents who were just different. Maybe the father was narcissistic and the mother was codependent. And when that happens, usually we'll end up taking one of the two personalities that we were familiar with growing up. So if you had a father and a mother in a family, maybe you have two parents lived together, or you had two parents lived together, it is likely you will pick one of them, the traits of one of them, the personality type of one of these two people. And the challenge therein is how this then impacts the way you show up in the world, or the kind of people you attract, or the way you see the world. In addition to what I've said, this is how I want you to think about everything that I've shared, in addition to my post. If you go to the written excerpt for in the last 3 days, I want you to think about the kind of person you have become, or the way in which you see the world, or the way in which you see your relationship with people. Some of us see relationships with ourselves. We don't have relationships with ourselves. We have relationships with, or we think we have relationships with people. And so when we think we have relationships with people, we show up with this mindset that if I keep giving, if I keep loving, if I keep being there for people, people are going to love and accept me, right? That is totally wrong. Sorry, you're getting it wrong there. Don't go about in this world thinking, I'm assuming that it is when you always give that people would love and accept you. Usually, this is the mistake that a lot of codependent people, especially codependent parents or caregivers, make, is when you do not set boundaries for your children, you end up making these children think that the world is theirs and they can use anybody or anything to get whatever they want. And that is why many times we end up creating children who become, well, we end up raising narcissistic children. In another case, when you don't create a narcissistic child, you would end up creating another codependent child who will go out there and may fall in love or attract a narcissist. Or this is the other way this can happen is you have a narcissistic parent who is so mean, and this child becomes codependent because the mother or father or parent are just too tough. The child begins to worry, and then the child is that I just want to do what my parent wants. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to, they will never want me to do anything else. So the only thing that child understands is, yes, ma, okay, ma. No questions, no communication, no conversation. Anything the parents say is right. The child cannot challenge them. And so the child grows up with a mindset that I cannot challenge people. I can ask questions. I can say my mind. I can think. People will think for me. People will make those decisions for me. And so for that kind of child who is then who was raised to see the world that way, the attachment style is that of a person who is just permissible, just accepting all nonsense, all garbages. And so the child shows up in the world that way. And the child would interact with people, would build relationships with friends, people in the church, other religious spaces, in school, college. And guess what? The child would continue to live that way, except the child heals from the trauma from childhood and becomes a better adult. And if that brokenness continues because of the brokenness from childhood, guess what happens? That child may, most of the time, attract another narcissist. I mean, you fall in love with a narcissist. You attract a narcissistic person. Now, you don't just wake up and begin a relationship or fall in love with a narcissist. It actually starts from the kind of friends you relate with, or the kind of friends you accept, or the kind of people who become your friends, the kind of people who become your boss, the kind of people who become your pastors or religious mentors or your life coaches. If you are the yes ma or the yes sir type, who never questions, who never says no, who accepts everything, who like Nansenker, when you fall in love with someone who is not treating you right, you're not likely going to say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want this. I don't want this relationship. You look away. You're too empathetic, and the empathy in you or the codependent in you just makes you feel that it is your responsibility to take care of that person. It is your responsibility to make sure that that person is never angry. You know what? The person you're in love with then becomes your parent again. The same parent you were living with, the same caregiver you had, the very first caregiver you have in your life is most likely the same kind of person you're going to be attracting in a partner. So if you had a caregiver who was codependent and raised you to be codependent, right? It is possible that you may end up attracting a narcissist. It is possible that you may end up attracting a codependent. And it is possible that if you were raised by a narcissistic parent, you may become narcissistic and end up attracting a codependent. And in some cases, you may attract your kind. And so how do you then understand what you should do? What then should you do if as you're trying to navigate and make sense of the things that I'm sharing? The very first thing is think about, how you show up and the role that you play in relationships with people. Now, when I say relationships, I'm talking about your work relationship, your relationship with your colleagues at work, your relationship with your colleagues, your classmates in college or high school, your relationship with your siblings, your relationship with a boyfriend or whosoever it is you're dating, or a partner or someone you're committed to right now, okay? When you think about all of these relationships, are you the one who is always giving, who never says no, who is willing to help even when it doesn't feel comfortable, even when it's not comfortable? Are you the type who accepts, okay, no problem, who never complains? Are you the type who would never say no, who would always tell people yes? Someone calls you, would you like to come for my party? You're actually supposed to be taking a nap. You said, okay, no problem, I'll come. You don't know how to set boundaries. Those are the things that would point to the fact that you are a bloody codependent. Bloody here means like get serious with your life and try to understand that, see, this thing is not as easy as it sounds. It is a very serious problem. And when you're not careful, you are more than likely going to recreate that cycle. In the children that you may have with that person that you're currently dating or committed to, or even in that marriage, I might post today, like I've been sharing with you, or in the last 33 days, and as I'm sharing with you today, my goal is for us to have non-toxic relationships. But if you do not know the baggage from your childhood, sorry, you're going to continue that baggage in a relationship, and you're going to even attract another bigger baggage. And this is what is even more problematic. You know, there's this thing, or they always say about when people get a divorce, they end up divorcing and marrying the same kind of person they were running away from. Why? Because they still do not know that there is a problem from their childhood. They actually think that the person that they divorced is the problem, or the person that they are trying to divorce is the problem. No, that person is even the least of your problem. If you choose to divorce somebody right now, or you choose to end that relationship because it's toxic, guess what? The person is not your problem. Your problem is you. And you, I say you, I refer to your childhood, the parenting, the caregiver from your childhood. Who was the first caregiver in your life? Before you ever became an adult who could make decisions, who was making decisions for you? Was the person kind? Was the person unkind? Think about it. And more importantly, I want you to do me an honor, the honor of attending my book launch. My book launch is happening on May the 31st, which is my birthday. And I want you to make this a memorable year for me. And I want you to go register right now on my website. Go to bisolamiriam.com/becomingbm. When you register to attend my book launch, you're doing a lot of things for me and for many more victims of domestic violence. The first thing you're doing for me is you're showing me that you dare for me, that you care about me, that I deserve to be celebrated. So you going to my website and registering to attend shows one thing for sure, that you think I deserve to be celebrated. And I want you to show me that you care about me by RSVPing to attend my book launch. When you attend this book launch and listen to my story and get a chance to even ask me questions and engage with me during this book launch, you're also getting the chance to also hear some other things that I may not have been able to share in my story series, or some things that you're still confused about. And I'm also going to also say that you donating, even if you can attend, or RSV, even if you will attend, your presence alone is enough to help us see that, to help people know that, okay, wow, if a lot of people can actually turn up for this launch and be a part of this great cause, it means that this is something that our future donors, our future partners can look into supporting. And so please come out and support me on that day, either online or in person. And the way to do that is to go register on my website right now, bisolamiriam.com/becomingbm. When you register to attend in person or virtually to solidarize with me and support me, you are showing that, one, you care about me, two, you care about this cause, and you want us to have a more just world where people can say no to domestic violence, and we can have a world where we have more empathetic people and less toxic people. Even more, when you RSVP or register to attend this event and pre-order this customized outfit that I'm wearing here, you're also going to make it possible for me. One, you get this outfit to attend the event online or in person, and the pictures that you take, because you are going to be sending us pictures, those pictures we will post and we'll tag you, we'll share about, your support for this work. Okay, we'll put you up on our pages. You'll be a celebrity, actually, during and after the event, because this is a cause that we're committed to growing every day. Because every day there is a victim somewhere. Every day someone is hurting. Every day someone is in pain. And so this is not going to be a conversation that was starting and then we end it there. No, this is something that has come to stay. While we're opening up this movement on my birthday, yes, it is starting that day, but it doesn't stop there. It becomes something that we wake up every day to talk about, to advocate about, to show out, to speak about. Okay. And so support this project by registering. Go RSVP on my website. And when you register and make a small donation, you get this customized outfits for free. The payment you make goes into giving you this customized outfit. In addition to that, you get to join online. And this customized outfit can be shipped to you anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. This customized outfits automatically makes you a member of the I Day For You movement. I Day For You movement, okay? What exactly is I Day For You? I Day For You basically means I care about you, I support you, I believe you. The day in the I Day For You, okay, is a West African balance, which means support, presence, trust. Okay, I trust you, I am here for you, I care about you. Basically, that's the way I want you to think about the I Day For You movement. And if you do this for me, you're not doing it for me, you're doing it for generations of women who are yet to speak up. You're doing it for generations of men who are yet to speak up. And I want you to don't see this as a one-day thing. This is not a one-day thing. Domestic violence is not a one-day problem. It is something that is happening right now, even right now on your street, with someone close to you, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your church, someone at your workplace. Domestic violence is not when someone slaps you or hits your face. It happens in form of emotional abuse. And many people are actually suffering from emotional abuse more than they are suffering from other forms of domestic violence. And you don't have to be in a marriage relationship with somebody for you to be a victim of domestic violence. You can be dating someone and be experiencing this. You might have a boss who is toxic. That's violence. That's organizational violence. You might have a religious leader or a mentor or a coach who is toxic. You might have toxic siblings, brothers or sisters. You may have toxic parents. And so that's why this is a big problem. I mean, think about how we unshame left-handed people. We coerce left-handed people to use their right hands. That's abusive. That is domestic violence, okay? So we're not saying that intimate partner violence is the only form of domestic violence there is. There are many more forms of violence. And that's why this cause is an inclusive cause. It's a cause that seeks to advocate and get justice for, seeks to advocate against all forms of violence and get justice for all victims, irrespective of their ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender inclination, and all those other constructs that we as people have set for ourselves. And so it is very crucial that we know that this is a global problem, and this is a problem that we all are maybe victims of, and together we can nip this nonsense in the bud. Thank you for listening today, but go to my website right now and RSVP. So simply go to bisolamiriam.com/becomingbm. I'm going to type that on my Instagram handle. And if you are watching live, I can try to also, let's see. Awesome. That's it. I'm done with this session, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Abundance is here. Bye.